Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video in our MERN series. So we've been building out this Zelda themed application here, and basically it looks like this. You've got your blog and all of these different articles that you can click on. So if I click on one of these, it's going to take me to an article about that specific game. You can navigate there, and you've got embedded videos and pictures and all of that. And up until this point, we've built out we've built out the back end. So last time we set up the MongoDB, we set up the Node.js server using Express and Cores and Multer to serve up those static images. And now, finally, we're going to start building out the front end. So this part right here, the part that we actually look at when we see a website. But before we do that, if you're liking this video series and you're finding this helpful, then definitely leave a comment down below and then like the video so that we can continue putting out future content just like this. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. So let's go ahead and come into our code from last time. And if you're just joining us, if you didn't see the last video, I encourage you to go one video back in this playlist and definitely watch that so you can get caught up to where we're starting from. Or alternatively, you can download the code directly from our GitHub, which is also down in the link in the description below. But you're also going to need MongoDB, specifically MongoDB Compass, which is the local version of MongoDB that we're running. And then also make sure you have Node.js installed and Insomnia if you ever want to test your routes, which we will do that again in the future. Anyway, here is where we left off last time. I'm going to go ahead and close out of the server.js and the backend. Actually, real quick, let's go ahead and cd into our backend and make sure it's running. So cd backend. And then in here to run it, you remember we just type node server.js, hit enter. Okay, server is running on port 1987, which is of course the year that the original Zelda was released in North America. And before we, actually we're done there. Close out the backend and let's go into the front end. So in another PowerShell window, let's cd into the front end, and we need to create our React application. And we're going to use that using the npx tool that comes with Node. So to do that, I can type npx create React app. And again, if you don't have this front end folder, just make it. You can click this little button right here to make a new folder. And once we get here, npx create React app. So this function that we're going to run is going to actually create our application for us, kind of the basic structure that we're using. But we need to hand it a folder name. But since we already made that front end folder, if I just do dot, it's going to give the current folder that we're in, meaning this front end folder. And that's what we want. So hit enter on that, and that should take just a minute to complete. Okay. Now that that's completed, you can see inside of our front end, you've got our node modules folder, which is all of the packages and all the dependencies that are built. We've got a public folder now with a fav icon and index.html, a couple different logos, and a manifest and a robots. You've also got a source directory where you've got an app CSS and app.js, and then some test stuff, another logo here, and then some other stuff. It also comes predefined, or it comes just out of the box with a Git repository in it in the front end. And then you've got your package lock and then your package.json. And again, this package.json file here, this is going to be just all of the dependencies that we're using in this project are going to be defined in this file. And while we're here, let's go ahead and add a few more. So back in the terminal again, if you type npm install Axios, which is a library that we're going to be using to actually make the HTTP calls to our backend so that we can communicate with our Mongo database. And then AOS, which is a directory that we're going to use just for fade animations and things entering onto the screen. So for example, here, if I refresh this page, you can see these all fade in from the top and these fade in from the bottom. And if I scroll down, they kind of fade in over just a split second. So that's AOS that we're going to be using to do that. And then after that, let's go ahead and do this library called React Router DOM as well. And we're going to be using that for React navigation. So hit enter on that, and those are going to install as well. And at this point, we should be good to go. You can see even in this package.json, we've added React Router DOM, and then we've also added AOS and Axios. And again, if you're watching this video further down the line, these are all of the versions that I'm using in this video if you're running into dependency issues. And of course, I'm filming this. These are up to date as of March 7th, or sorry, not March 7th, May 7th, 2024. But if you're down the road and you're having trouble with any of these, you can just roll back to these versions and everything should work just like it does in the video. So now that we've got all those packages installed, let's go into our public folder. So we need to replace this fav icon, which is just the default React, and then these two logos. We're not going to use the React versions, so delete all three of those. Now with those deleted, if you come down into the project files folder that I gave you, and then in images, let's find this logo 192 and logo 512. I'm going to copy both of those and now paste those directly into the public folder. So go ahead and paste that. And now after that, I'm going to copy logo 192, paste that as well. And then we're going to rename that one to favicon.ico. So that fav icon is obviously going to be the little icon up on the tab of your web page. So now if I come down to my terminal and write npm start, and whenever this gets up and running, it'll bring up the website for me. And you see we've got our React app up on the tab on the top. You've got our little Triforce logo, which is our fav icon. And we've got the React logo just spinning there. And it's got this link to learn React at react.js.org. So this is basically just the default boilerplate template that comes with React whenever you install it with npx create React app, which is what we did. But now we want to get rid of that. So come down in here and basically I'm going to empty out my app. So clear all of that out. Clear all of that out, and we're just going to leave an empty element right there. And one thing I like to do is for all of my React files, instead of using .js, I'm going to rename that to .jsx, just so that in my mind, when I look at the project, it's just a little more clear what that is. So the JSX file, it's going to act the exact same way as a .js file. The only difference is you get this little React next to it, at least if you have the plugin installed that I have installed, which is this material icon theme by Philip Keefe. If you have that plugin installed, then your JSX file is going to get that little React icon next to it. But functionally, a JSX and a JS file are going to be the same within your project, but just for me, for something like an app, like a JSX file, I'm going to use that for any files that I'm specifically writing React code in, and JS I'm going to use for any files that I'm only using for pure JavaScript. Okay, with that being said, let's have a look at our index.html, and basically I'm going to delete all of these comments out of here. We don't need any of those. And this is just going to simplify things a little bit. The title, instead of React app, I'm going to change that to Zelda blog. And for the content, we're just going to type a blog site project to demo the MERN stack. Okay, save that file, close out of that. And then back in this app.jsx, I'm going to get rid of this imported logo that we no longer need. And up here, we're going to import React from React, which you don't technically need to do anymore, but I'm just in the habit, so we're going to do that. I think as of React 17, that's not required anymore. And then we're also gonna import our use effect hook from React. And basically the use effect is gonna allow us to run a block of code whenever our component is created. It's similar to something like your component did mount. So in here, if I just type use effect, and then in here, we're going to do a React arrow function. And inside of that arrow function, basically what I want to do is initialize my AOS. And AOS, as I told you before, is the library that we're going to be using for all of those fade-in animations. So import from, import AOS from AOS. And once we have that in there, I can come down into this use effect and say AOS.init. And then inside of my init block, we'll set the duration. And I'm just going to set that equal to 1000. And then, and these are milliseconds, I believe. So 1000 is going to be 1 second. And then after that, we just say AOS.refresh, and it's that easy. That's all we need to do to set up AOS for those fade animations. Now, inside of this component down here, we need to return something for our application, because right now, if you look at our website now, you will just see a blank page here. And that's because we're returning this empty block down here. So I need to put something inside of that. And what you could do is just set up your routing table right here. But I don't generally like to do that. Instead, I like to put a routes directory in here so it's a little more clear where our routes are located. So let's go ahead and right click, new folder, routes, and then inside of this folder, we're gonna have two new files, index.css and index.jsx. Now inside of the index.jsx file, if I just type RAFCE, this is shorthand for our React arrow function component, which basically it'll generate this code for us here. If you don't see this pop up, that means you need to download the same plugin that I'm using here. So if you come over to your extensions tab, look for one called ESX React Redux React Native Snippets. So get that plugin, type RAFCE, and now it should auto-generate this template for you. And I'm going to change this lowercase I to a capital I. Basically, I'm doing that because this RAFCE function is going to pull your function name from your file name, which is lowercase index.jsx, which is what we want. But for React functions, generally, for React components, we use capital letters. So that's what's going on there. And then in here, we'll just say route index. Now, I can save that file, and let's import that CSS file as well. So import, and this is just going to be /index.css. Save that. Come back to my app.jsx, and we don't need this CSS anymore. We're just using this as a wrapper. So also we can delete that app.css file. And now in here, if we just import that index that we just created, so this index from routes, if I click on that, you can see it has imported that from my routes. And if I were just to close that now and save my file, now if I look at my website, I should see just up here, it says route index, which means this app.jsx wrapper is all set up and good to go. So I can close out of that. And then also this logo.svg, I can delete that file. We don't need that either because we deleted that out of the app.jsx. And now inside of this new index.jsx that I just created, I can start populating my routing table. So to do that, we need to import a few things from React Router DOM. So import, and in here, we could say routes, route, and browser router. And these are all coming from React Router DOM, this package here. And now let's save that file. And basically, instead of this route index down here, We're going to have this div. I'm going to throw a class name on it. We are just going to call this app container. And then inside of here, I'm going to have a browser router, which we need to wrap all of our routes in. And inside of that browser router, we can put our routes tag. Our routes tag like that. And then any route that we want to add can go right in here. But before we add the routes, we need to actually maybe make a few components and pages. So let's go ahead and set up the rest of our directory and file structure over here. And then once we have that all set up, we'll just go through and populate the code as we go. So come back into the source. I'm going to have one directory for components. And then I'm going to have one directory for, also within the source, I'm going to have one more directory for pages. So inside of components, let's add a file for navbar.jsx, also navbar.css, and then we'll do footer.jsx, also footer.css, and then one more, I'll call it a game card.jsx and a game card.jss, or sorry, CSS. Let's rename that one. Okay, so we've got all of these here. Let's go into our footer.jsx, and I could type RAFCE for that React arrow function component. This gives us a footer. And now let's do one more thing and just import our CSS file for that. Save that. Okay, close out of the footer. Now in the game card, let's do the same thing, RAFCE. And then inside of here, let's also import the footer.css. Or sorry, not footer. This is the game card. Gamecard.css. Save that file as well. Close out of that. And let's also go into our, let's see, we did footer. We need to do our navbar. So RAFCE, React arrow function component. And then in here, let's go ahead and import the navbar.css. Save that, close it, close all of these. We should be good with all of that. There's one more thing I'm going to put in the footer, and it's going to be an index file. So index.js. And then inside of this index file, basically, I'm going to import footer from ./footer. I'm going to import navbar from ./navbar. And then I'm going to import, let's see, footer navbar and game card from ./game card. And then under that, all I'm going to do is simply export all of these. So to do that, if I just type export and then inside brackets, I can say footer navbar game card. Save that file. Now, if I come back into my index.jsx, which is where I'm building everything, so inside of here, if I want to import, for example, the footer and the navbar, I can type import, and then we can say footer navbar from. Here, we can just simply say routes. Or no, sorry, not routes, /components. So basically, what this index file in my components allows me to do is basically I can import each one of these items. Instead of doing them all on one individual line like here, I can, in any project I want, or any file I want, I can import all three of them on the same line. And that's what we're doing here with our footer and our navbar. So with that being done, let's go ahead and populate our pages directory as well. So inside of the pages, we are going to have a new file for our about.jsx, new file about.css, and then after that, I'm going to have a new file for my admin.jsx as well as my admin.css. And then after that, we're going to have our blog.jsx and then our blog.css. And basically, we're going to do the same thing in here, come through each one of these, RAFCE, and then import the CSS styles as well. So import ./about.css, save that file, close it, and then admin, RAFCE, and then import admin.css, save that, close that, and then blog, RAFCE, and then inside of here, we're going to import that blog CSS again. So import blog.css. And now if I save that file and close out of these, now we're going to do the same thing we did here with this index.js. I'm going to do that same thing inside of my pages directory. So new file, index.js, and then inside of this, I'm going to say import about from, and then /about, import admin from /admin, and then import blog from /blog. And with all of those set up, all I have to do is come down here and say export about admin blog. Put a semicolon after that, save that file, close out of that. Now we can come back to our index.jsx in our routes, and I can say import admin about blog from /pages. Okay, so now that we have all of that structure set up on our site, we can go through and we can populate this routing table with exactly what we need it to look like. So to do that, let's come back down here, and we've got our browser router and then our routes. So actually just above the routes, we are going to have a navbar. So we've already got that imported. Let's do the navbar above the routes, and then just below the routes, we are going to do a footer. So we've got our navbar and our footer, and I'm actually going to wrap these routes in one more div, just so we can apply some styles to it later. Actually, rather, let's wrap this entire app in one more div. And this will just help us when we go to set up our background later. So div, class name, we're just going to call this my app box. And then paste all of that back in there, tab it out properly. And now in here, we need to actually build our the routes that we need for the React router done. So to do that, route, and we're going to have path equals, and here's going to be our home path, and then element is going to be equal to, this one is just going to be our blog. And then we've got all of that set up. Let's go ahead and close out that route. Okay, so basically the way that this route is structured is this is our path, meaning our URL. And then this is our element, meaning what element we're gonna display whenever we're on that URL. So right now, that's going to show my blog. If I copy this, let's do 2 more times. And if I say about, and I want this to show my about page. And then if this is my admin, and I want this to show my admin page. So now if I save that file and come back to here, you can see I've got navbar, blog, footer. But if I change this actually and put about after that, now I've got navbar, about, footer. And if I change that to admin, now I've got navbar, admin, footer. So that's how we're going to move back and forth. And there's actually one more route that we're going to need here. So let me copy that one. And this is going to be for our blog, basically our blog post. So post title. And this, I don't have a page for that. So let's go back in the pages and make one more page. Right click, new file, blog page dot, and I guess, yeah, blog page.jsx, and then right click, new file, blog page.css. Now come into the JSX file, RIFCE, and let's import our CSS. So import /blog page.css. Save that file, close it, open up this index in the pages one more time, and we're going to import blog page from blog page. And basically we need to export that one as well. So blog page, save that file, close it, come back to my index.jsx, and then up here, blog page. And it's that simple. If we ever need to add a new page anywhere in our application, that's all that we really need to do. Add it into our pages directory, add it into the index, and then we can import it just like we imported all of the others. Now let's go ahead and in the source directory, let's make just a few more files. So I'll do one for .env, and then inside of the .env files, basically we need to set up the environment variables that we're going to be using to connect to our backend. So React app base URL, and then this base URL is going to be http://localhost 1987, which you'll remember from the last video. 1987 is the port that we are hosting that backend on. And then after that, React app URL postfix. So postfix is right what we're adding on to the tail end of our URL for all of our API calls. And you'll remember we had the API key that we're using in the backend, which means we need to postfix every URL HTTP request with that API key. So API key equals Zelda 1987. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that file. And obviously you could put these in a JavaScript file directly, but because this is an API key, you don't generally want your API key to be stored up in your repository or to be public anywhere. So we put them in the .env file just so that you can more or less use that API key in your code without actually exposing it publicly. So that .env file is good to go. And I'm going to have one more file here that we're going to call variables.css. And basically inside of my variables.css file, I am just going to copy and paste this. And all this is inside of my root, I've got a bunch of different color variables for my color scheme setup, and then corners, my corner radius that's going to be default across the application, and then just the variable for how tall our header is going to be. So I'm just going to leave that there for a second. You're welcome to pause the video and type all of that up, or if you just go down to the GitHub in the link description, you can copy and paste that into your code as well. And with that being said, that's the only thing we're going to copy and paste in this video. And we've got the variables CSS there. Let's add a file for util.js. And then let's add one file for constants.js. And with that being said, I'm going to close out of that file and that file and that file. And now we're ready to actually start populating the code in our application. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I want to do is, if you look at our website, this is just a blank white page. And if you're like me, you hate staring at white pages. So let's make this look like something really quickly. So right up here, the first thing we're going to do is add an img for our background, and the source is going to be equal to our background. And let's add an alt for that. Alt equals link and the great Deku tree. And then we will add a, let's add a class name of background image. And then we need to actually set this source here. So we need to import an image for that. But if you look here, we don't have any images. So we're going to add that as well. New directory, and I'm going to call it assets. Now inside of assets, let's paste one file from our project files again that you got on GitHub. Let's copy background.jpg and go ahead and paste that into the assets file. So there's our background that we want to set up. So back in the index file, we need to import background image from and /assets/background.jpg. So now if I go ahead and save this, we have an error because we haven't actually put the source down here. So if I save that file, now I've got this background image. Let's put it down there, save it again, go back to the website, and there is our image. But of course, it's too big for what we have, and we want it to be fixed. So we need to apply a couple styles to that. And to do that, we need to import our styles.css, or rather our index.css. So let's go ahead and do that. Import index.css. Save this file. Now let's copy this background image and come into our index.css, and let's actually make some of the files that we need here. So the first thing I'm going to do here is at import /variables.css, and I guess I should just do that across the board because we're going to want to use these variables in a whole bunch of different files. Save that, and .app container. So inside of our app container, I'm going to say my min height is going to be basically 100% of the viewport height, and then my min width is going to be not none, but 100%. Okay, save that, and this is just going to ensure that our background is going to cover the entire screen. And then down here, our background image. Inside here, I want position fixed, and then we're going to say left 33%, and I'll explain what these numbers are in a little bit. Bottom, the bottom I'm going to set to 0 pixels, and after that we're going to say transform translate x negative 33%. And then after that, I'm going to set my z index to -1 because it's the background. We're always going to want this to be on the bottom. And then object fit cover, and then overflow hidden. Right, so overflow hidden means anything that goes outside of it is going to be hidden. Object fit cover means we're going to make sure that this this image fits the entire object that it's within, which is our app container. And then our z index is equal to -1, meaning we're going to keep that pretty low on the z-index scale because we want that always to be behind everything. The position fixed and then bottom 0 means that this image is going to be fixed in the same spot, and the bottom of the image is going to be on the bottom of our container, which is going to be the bottom of our screen. And then we're going to shift it to the left 33% and then translate it back a negative 33%. So the reason that we're doing that, if you look at this image now, you can see here, this is what it was like before. Now, if I save it or refresh this page, nothing's changed. I probably have not saved something. So if I save index.css and go back to my page, now it's fixed right there with our other components starting from the top. And this is in the background. But Link here, the character, is right where he is. He's positioned right in the middle. And no matter where this is, so even on a smaller screen, Link stays in the picture no matter what. Whereas if we just said fixed left 0 and then here, let me just do that actually. So we'll comment out that line and then comment out that line. And then we can say left 0 pixels, save that. And now if I go back to the image here, you'll notice on a small screen, Link is gone. And as I expand it, he comes back. But once I get below that point, he's gone, which means if you're pulling this up on a phone or even a smaller tablet, you're not going to see Link. And this is a Zelda themed site, so he's kind of important for this. So for that reason, that's what this code is doing here. We've got left 33%, and then we're shifting it back negative 33%. So if I have it like that, if you look here now, no matter where this is, you could see as I expand it, it looks like it's actually growing on both sides, and that's because it is. And no matter how small I get, Link is still actually going to be in the image. So that's what those numbers are for. And then finally, let's go ahead and apply a few styles to our app box that we have down here, down below. And actually, let's rename that to route box. I think that makes a little more sense than that. So copy that, save that file, come down here, .route box, and then inside of our route box, I'm going to say display flex. I'm going to say min height is going to be, again, 100% viewport height. And then after that, I can say flex direction is going to be a column. And after that, we're going to align our items in the center, and we're going to justify our content using space between. And then I'm going to set flex grow to 1, just so that'll grow. Now, if I save that and come back to our site, nothing will have, let's see, come back to our site. You can see now, actually, let me just align these side by side so that I don't have to keep switching back and forth between the two of them. Okay, so now you can see on our site, we've got our nav bar up top, we've got admin in the middle, and then we've got our footer down below. Okay, so now with that being done, let's go ahead and start building out our footer and our header, and then after that, we'll fill in the middle. So we can close out of this index.css. We don't need that anymore. And I'm going to start with the footer. So if I control click on that, it's going to take me into here. And basically, if you look on my site that we're using, on the footer, basically it's going to be a gray background, slightly transparent with this Triforce logo. So this should be actually really easy to do. But we are going to need that logo. So come back to the project files folder and take this footer logo and also this triforce.png that we're going to use in the header. Take both of those and copy them. And let's go ahead and just paste those directly into our assets folder. So now I've got this footer logo as well as a triforce.png. And inside of my footer, I am going to basically just import that footer logo now. So I can say import logo from, and then / assets / footer logo.png. And now inside of here, basically I can delete that footer, and here I'm just going to throw a center HTML tag. And then inside of that center HTML tag, I'm just going to throw a, what did I type? An IMG tag. And then in that IMG tag, I'm simply going to set the src, or the source for that, equal to my logo. And by the way, if you're new to React, you may have noticed a lot of this actually just looks like HTML wrapped up in a arrow function wrapper. And it pretty much is, but the one important distinction to make here is that this, right, typically in HTML, I wouldn't write that. I would write in quotes, and then I would say ... /assets /footer -logo long.png. But in React, this doesn't work. So if I were to save this and then look at my site, you get this little image not found logo down here. And basically, you can't access stuff like that in React. You need to put it inside of the curly brackets. And basically, anytime I have curly brackets in my React code inside of the HTML, this is where I can insert JavaScript directly into my HTML code, so that I don't need a separate script tag or a separate script file to do that from. So this logo here is actually this JavaScript variable up here. And then now that we have that, let's go ahead and set an alt on this as well. So we're just going to call this our Zelda logo, or whatever you want to call it. And then after that, I'm going to set my height on this logo to be 100 pixels. Whoops, without the brackets. This one we can put just in quotes. So 100 pixels. Save that. And there we go. The Zelda logo shows up at the bottom, but there's no background on there. So let's go ahead and apply a class name to that footer as well. We're going to call it a footer box. Save that file and then come into our footers.css. And inside of here, we need to apply some styles to that footer box. So I could say width is going to be 100%. And then my background color is going to be a variable. And if you'll remember, we saved all of our variables inside of our variables.css. And specifically, the one that we are going to want is this one right here, secondary color with an alpha. So let's copy that and then come back to footer. And at the top here, we can say @import /variables.css and paste that variable name inside of that var. And then after that, we can do, we need a semicolon up there. And then after that, let's just add a little bit of padding, maybe 12 pixels on the left and the right side, and then 0 pixels up and down. Or sorry, 12 pixels on the top and the bottom, and then 0 pixels on the left and right. And now there we go. We have our footer, and that is basically all we have on the other site. So we're done with that. It looks decent enough for this small project. So I can close out of all of my footers. Now let's go ahead and open up our Navbar component. So back in here, if I just hold Control and then click on that, it should pull up our Navbar component, and then Control click on that. Here's our navbar.css. And actually, let me just copy that top line, and we're going to paste that into our navbar.css. Okay, and now here, if you remember what the site looked like earlier, the navbar is going to be just a little more complicated, but not much. You just basically have this green navbar here, and you've got a Triforce logo up here with a blog about, and then admin links with just a small animation on each of the triangles next to them. So this shouldn't be that difficult to do. Let's go ahead and just jump in and start building this. So first off, on this outer div, we're going to say class name equals navbar-container. And then inside of here, the first thing I'm going to have is a link. And we want this one here from React Router DOM. So if you select that, it should auto import that for you. And basically, inside of this link, I'm going to put an img tag, and this right here. So if I go to the About page and then click on the Triforce, that's actually a link back to the home page. And a lot of sites do that, where the logo is a link to their home page. So we're going to go ahead and do that here as well. So in here, we're going to have an img, and then src is equal to, again, we need to come import something up here. So let's go ahead and import logo from // assets / this triforce.png that we imported earlier. So let's import it from that. And then down here, I can say my source for my image is going to be my logo, and then my alt will say Triforce logo, and then a class name, I can just say Navbar logo. Okay, so there's our img tag, and then this link, I'm also going to want to put a class name on that so we can apply some styles there as well. So we're going to say Navbar brand, and this is going to be a link to, and if I just put /, that's my homepage, or rather the blog homepage, and then on click is going to be equal to well, we'll come back to that in a second. Basically, actually, let me just show you right now. If I scroll all the way down and then click on this link, it pulls me all the way back up to the top. So I need a function here to scroll me back up to the top. And to do that, basically, I'm going to use this function on every single link that I have. So to do that, I'm just going to have a shared function inside of my util.js. So let's just go ahead and write that really quick. Export const scroll to top is going to be equal to an arrow function. And then inside of this arrow function, I can just say window.scroll to. And then inside of here, all we have to do is say top 0, and then behavior smooth. Okay, and that should be everything I need for that. So let's save that, come back to Navbar, and say my onClick is going to be scroll to top. And if I click this one, it should auto import that for me, which it did right there. I've got the scroll to top there. Okay, now let's go back to, let's see, we have our link. And then after we have our link, we need to have essentially 3 more links. So to do that, I'm going to make a container div down here. So div class name, and I'm going to call this navbar link list. And then inside of here, we are going to have a, let's see, another div with a class name, and that's going to be equal to nav-item-box. And basically what this box is for is here, we have one item, which is that triangle next to it, and then one item, which is the word for the link itself. So in here, we're going to say div, and this first div is going to be class name nav triangle. This is going to be our triangle that we have right there, this white and sometimes yellow triangle when I hover that spins. So there's our navigation triangle, and then after that, I'm going to have a actual navigation link down here as well. And my class name is going to be equal to, so basically, I need to not put this in quotes. I need to put this in JavaScript so that I can do a string template. And the reason that I need to do that is because if I click on any one of these, you'll see that whichever one I have selected turns yellow. And the way that we're doing that is essentially we're going to be tracking our current location and then applying a style to make this yellow based on if it's if it's the active link or not. So to do that, before we can even do that, we need to come up here in the nav bar and we need to add let's see, const location is equal to use location. And if I hit enter, you'll see it imports use location from React router DOM. And then after that, I can say const category path equals location dot path name. Okay, so now basically this path is going to be whatever we have after our blog up here. So if I click on about, you see we have about. If I click on admin, we have admin. And then if I click here, we have nothing. So we need to check this, and depending on which one is set, we can change it down here to apply a yellow style to our link or not. So to do that, in here, I can say nav link, and then after that, we say dollar category path equals, and here we want to say if it equals this slash, which is my home, then I'm going to apply, so then I'm going to apply my active link class. And if it's not, then I'm just going to apply a blank string to the rest of that. Okay, now after that template there, we need to add the 2, and then we should be just about good to go. So I'm going to add, and let me just put this on separate lines so that you can read that a little bit better. 2 is equal to slash, and then after that, that's all we need in there. And then inside of here, we're just going to write blog. Okay, so if I save that now and look here, you won't, well, you see the big logo right there. We haven't applied any styles. Let's not worry about looking at that yet. So we've got our blog, and then basically we need to have our blog, our about, and then our admin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this entire thing and duplicate it 2 more times. And here, instead of slash, I'm going to say about, and then instead of blog, I'm going to say about. And then down here, same thing, we're going to change that slash to an admin, and then instead of blog, admin down there as well. Okay, and here as well, on the 2, we need about, and then on the 2, we need admin. So now, if I save that, our nav bar should be pretty much good to go here. The only thing we need to do is go through and actually set all of our navbar CSS styles. So let's go ahead and do that. So I can say dot navbar dash container. And then inside of my navbar container, I'm going to say background color is going to be var. And here, this is going to be my primary color. I can say my width is going to be 100%, and my height is going to be var navbar height. And then my position, I'm going to say sticky, just so that this stays on the top of the screen. And top is going to be 0 pixels. Left is going to be 0 pixels. And then finally for this, we're going to say my Z index, I'm just going to set that equal to 10 because we want that to be on top. So 10 is a high enough number. And then finally down here, display, flex, justify content. We're going to start it at the flex start. And then align items, I'm going to say center. Okay, save that. And let's have a look at that now. Okay, so This doesn't look so good. Yeah, so, oh, I see. So basically, this image isn't styled yet, obviously. And then if we scroll to the right, you can see all the links here. But basically, it looks like I spelled this wrong. So let's change that to color, save it. And there we go. There's our navbar color. And now we just need to finish out styling this. So down here, I could say .navbar logo. And this image is going to be a cursor pointer so that it looks like a link when we hover over it. And then I'm going to say my height is going to be 100 pixels. And we're going to say our margin is going to be 10 pixels. Now save that. There we go. This is looking so much better already. Let's keep going and finish this up. So we've got our navbar linked list that we need to style here. So we've got our navbar link list, and basically inside of here, we want our display to be a flex, and then we want flex wrap to turn on. So when this gets too small, they will still be able to display. So save that, and now we've got them all in a row, and we need to apply a few more styles here. So I could say dot nav link, and our nav link, we're going to say our color is going to be white, our font weight is going to be 500, and then our text decoration, you can see right now they're purple, just like a standard link with the underline. I don't like that. I think it looks a lot better without that. So text decoration none, save that, and it's looking better. Also on these, you'll remember if I hover over these, they change to yellow. So let's go ahead and add that as well. And first we need to have a transition. So I can say transition all 0.3 seconds, which is how long it's going to take, ease in and out. Okay. So nothing will have changed yet because we haven't actually applied a hover to that yet. Let's go ahead and do that. So if I say dot nav item box hover, whoops, colon hover, well, then in there I can say dot nav link, and we'll say color is going to be equal to var dash dash tertiary color. Save that. Now you can see we have that yellow transition happening, fading from white to yellow whenever we hover. And we're going to need a few more things here. So I've got my nav link. Next, we need to actually make that triangle. So dot nav triangle. And to make a triangle in CSS, we can simply set the width and then the height, both of them to 0. And then we can make a triangle using the border. So if I say border left is 8 pixels, solid, transparent, and then same thing, border right is also 8 pixels, solid, transparent, and then border bottom is going to be here, let's say 13.856 pixels, solid white, and I've already done the math on that, so you just have to trust me on that number that this is in fact going to give us an equilateral triangle. And then we'll give a margin on this, so margin right 10 pixels, and then down here we could say transform origin, meaning when I spin it, right? So when that spin happens, where is it going to spin from? Is it going to spin from the bottom, the middle of the object, the top of the object, the side of the object? That's what this transform origin is, and I'm going to set it to the center. And then after that, I could say transition 1 second, ease in and out, transition transform, because we're going to be using a transform to spin that. ease in and out, and then border bottom 0.3 seconds, ease in and out. So let's go ahead and save that. And now you see we've got all of these triangles appearing, but they are, at least right now, still above it. So we need to go ahead and style our, let's see, we need to style our nav item box here. So let's go ahead and do that one as well. So nav item box, and then inside of here, I could say display, flex, say align items, center, justify content, center, and then margin. Let's go ahead and give it 4 pixels on the top and the bottom, and then 20 pixels on the side. And we're going to say for this one as well, transition all 0.3 seconds, and then ease in and out. And finally, this is going to be a cursor pointer as well. Okay, there we go. These links are looking so much better now. There's just one more thing we need to do. Even if I click on these, you could see these links are actually changing our URL and changing what's displayed here. So this is working, but that little animation with the thing spinning, the triangle spinning and changing colors is not working. So to do that, I need to come down into my nav item box hover, and we need to add one more thing in here. And that's going to be our, let's see, dot nav, what did I call that? Nav triangle. Nav triangle. And then inside of our nav triangle, I can say transform, rotate, and then rotate. We're just going to rotate it 360 degrees all the way around. And for the last one, I can say border, bottom is going to be 16 pixels, solid. And basically, we're going to change this to our tertiary color, save that. And now you see our triangle is changing colors and rotating, and all of our links are working. So that's pretty much it for our nav bar. Oh, except one thing. You'll notice we're on about right now, but my about is still white. Now we applied the style active link as a class name. We applied active link to that, but we never actually defined that in navbar.css. So let's also do that here. Active link. And then inside of here, I can say color is going to be equal to var tertiary color, and then save that. There we go. Same thing here. So this is looking pretty good. With that done, let's go ahead and close out of the navbar and come back to our index.jsx, our routing table here. And you'll remember we've got our navbar and then our footer and then all 4 of these routes. This one, the admin route, we're not going to worry about in this video, so we'll just leave that blank for now. But the blog, and then we'll do the blog and the about and then the single blog post in this video. So we need to go ahead and do that. So to start up here, the first thing that we're going to need is we need to actually make that database call with Axios to get all of these to actually show up on our website. So to do that, I need to make a database call, and I don't want to do it. So if I come into my blog element, for example, if in here, I could technically pull in Axios, import Axios, and then use a use effect to pull in all of my posts here. But then if I click to about and then back to blog, it's gonna make that database call again. And then if I go to admin and then back to blog, or if I click on one of these articles and then if I click on an article and then go back, it's gonna load them all again. So I don't wanna do that. I don't need to essentially make a separate database call to the database for every single change that I'm making on my URL. I want this to be a fast and a responsive application. And if I'm going to read in all of this information anyway, when I come to this page, what I want to do is store that in my state and then use that state throughout the whole application. So instead of putting that inside the blog, I'm actually going to hoist that state up to my index.jsx and put it in there. So to do that, we can come down here, const, and I can say posts, set posts, and this is going to be equal to use state. So hit enter on that, and you should see it automatically import up here. And we'll go ahead and add use effect as well, because we're going to use that one in a minute. This is going to be use state, and right now it's just going to be a blank array. And then after that, I need, let's see. So I've got a blank array, and then also if I click on one of these, I need to know I want this specific post, right? And again, because I've already loaded in all of this data on the blog page, I don't want to load it in again, a single post when I click on it, because I already have that data. So to do that, whoops, what do we do here? Oh, I have an error on my page. Partially typed up code. Okay, let's not worry about that. Hit save, and there we go. We're good again. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to have another variable to track my current post. So const, and this is going to be selected post, and then set selected post, and this is going to be equal to use state. And basically both this whole entire list of posts and then my set selected post function, I want to pass down to my blog homepage. So posts is going to be equal to posts, and then my set selected post is going to be equal to set selected post, because basically whenever I click on one of these articles, I'm going to be calling this set selected post function. So to do that, I need to come into the blog, and I need to make this actually accept those as parameters. So posts, and then set selected posts, or set selected post, singular. Okay, save that. Now come back to the index. We have our state all set up here. But we haven't yet set up our actual database call. And to do that, because this is a JavaScript function that we're going to be using potentially from different files within our application and different components within our application, I generally like to put that inside of the util.js. So basically down here, I'm going to put an API functions section. And now let's look at if you remember from our Insomnia, what we were doing in the last lesson when we did HTTP localhost 1987, and then the route, which in this case is post, and then here's the API key. Now, if you remember what we put in our .env file in the front end, you've got React app base URL, which is the base URL, that's this part, HTTP localhost 1987, as well as the postfix, which is going to be this part, API key equals Zelda 1987. So really all we need to do is put this post in here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to minimize this, and to get these into my util.js, I'm actually going to put them in constants first. So I'm going to say export const base URL is equal to process.env dot React app base URL, and then export const URL postfix is going to be equal to process.env dot React app URL postfix. Okay, so now with both of those, I can come back to util.js, and above this function, we can say import, and we are going to import base URL, and what did I name that second one? Base URL, and then URL postfix. And once we have those, we can import Axios, and then we should be able to, once we have those and Axios, we can write our function to actually import this data. So import Axios from Axios. Now, if I come down below, we could say export const get posts equals, and this is going to basically be an arrow function here. So let's make our arrow function, and then inside of here, I could say return Axios dot get, and this is going to be a string template. So the first part is going to be our base URL, and then after that, you'll remember I just showed you all we needed to add was the post, and then in here, URL postfix. Okay, so with all of that set up, why is that not working? URL postfix. There we go. URL postfix. Let's just make sure that I spelled everything right. It looks like I did. Okay, so now with this, we need to deal with our promise. So we can say then response is going to be equal to, and then in this arrow function, I can say if response dot data dot length is greater than 0, meaning if we actually found some data here, then we can say basically we want to return that data, but we want to sort it first so that it's in the right order. So I could say const sorted data equals response dot data dot sort, and A, B equals new date B dot date minus new date A dot date. And if you don't understand what this is doing, basically we're sorting chronologically by date so that the oldest one shows up first and then the newest one is going to be last. So, and then basically all we have to do here is return sorted data. And after the then, we need to catch any errors that might happen. So to implement the error handling, we can simply use a catch block and say error, give this an arrow function. And then inside of here, I'm just going to say console.log error. Okay, save that, and our get post function does have one problem. URL postfix was not found in, okay, I did spell something wrong. URL postfix, copy, paste, save. Okay, we had a spelling issue. Now that that is sorted out, I can come back into my index.jsx, and then in here, basically we can call that get post function in a use effect block. So use effect, and then this is going to be an arrow function. And now inside of here, all I need to do is say get posts, and then dot then data is going to be equal to set posts data, or dot catch error is going to be equal to console dot log, and we'll just log that error fetching posts, and then after that we'll dump the error in there as well. Now there's one more optional parameter down here, and it's basically your dependency array. And what this means is any variable that I put in there. So for example, if I take this selected post variable and put it inside of there, that means anytime this variable changes, this use effect is going to run. If you only want it to run one time when the application loads, then we leave that array empty. And that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to leave that array empty in this case. And then I'm going to take my git post and import it up above. So import git post from util. Okay, now the one last thing I'm going to do, let's just console log this data just to verify that we are actually getting the data that we think we are, because right now we haven't put anything on the actual layout of the web page. So let's refresh that. And if let's just right click and go to inspect, and this should give us a console window here. And you can see actually I have an error, which it says get HTTP localhost 3000 undefined host undefined 404 not found. So I'm guessing probably, yeah, so I messed up. This .env file, if you look here, I have that actually inside of the source directory. That needs to be one level up inside of just our project, our front end directory, because those are going to be environment variables for the entire front end, not only for the source directory. So let's cancel that, terminate the application, and run that one more time. And hopefully this works. npm start. Let's run that again. And it's loading up right now. Let's go ahead and inspect, bring up a console. And sure enough, there we go, an array of 19 items. So we are successfully reading in all of the data from our backend database. So that's exactly what we want. Now we need to go back to our, we've got our index.js, not this one. Let's see, we've got our routes.index.jsx, and then in here, we have our blog, our about, our admin, and our post title. So let's go ahead and do this blog now. Come over to blog.jsx, and basically we need to go ahead and we're already passing in all of the data here. So the posts data is coming in here. So all we need to do is really map all of those posts to all of these cards down here, and then create the filters up top. So to do that, we're going to need a couple different libraries. First of all, I've got React coming in, but I need useState again because we're going to be using a state here. And then after useState, we want to import aos/dist/aos.css. And that's going to be what we're using again for the fade and animations and everything. And now, once we get down into here, const my current filter set current filter is going to be useState. And by default, whenever I load this page, I want it to be set to all. So initially, we're just going to put all in there. And then down here, we actually don't want to return this unless we actually have a list of posts, because we're going to map over that and we're going to get a index unfound error if we try to do that, or we're going to get a post undefined error rather if we try to do that without that actually being defined. So let's have an if check right here. So if not posts, then we're just going to return an empty. React element that we can define later. Whoops, not like that. Just an empty element like that. That's all we need. And after that, we can say else. And then we're going to put this return block actually inside of this else block. Paste it there. And that way, if we don't get data, we're not actually going to try to iterate over the posts, and we won't get those errors that we would get if we do that. And then in here, we basically, if you look at this data here. Where is it? This data. We've got the ID, a title, a release year, and then a system and a image path, and then finally the content after that. Now, what we want to filter on for these different posts or these different games is going to be the console or the system. So NES, Super Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy, Nintendo 64, GBC, Game Boy Color is what that stands for. Game Boy Advanced, Wii, DS, Switch, whatever. All of these different options that we have in here, we want to be able to filter on that, but we don't just want to take the list of systems from our array because we have duplicates in there. So I'm going to pull out all of the unique ones. So if I say const unique system set equals new set, and then after this I can say posts dot for each post. Let's do an arrow function, and then we're going to say unique system set dot add post dot system. Okay, so this is basically going to give us in the unique system set a unique set of all of these different filter options that we have with only one of them in there. So we don't have any duplicates anymore. So let's go ahead now and say const filters is going to be equal to ... unique system set. And what this is going to do is it's going to take this unique system set, which is a set, and convert it into an array, just because I like to map over arrays, and that's going to make it just easier for me. And then filters dot unshift all. And so what this unshift is going to do is essentially we're adding an element to the beginning of our array, and the element that we're adding is all, which is going to be our default filter that's selected. So once we have that, let me just go ahead and verify that we're getting what we think we're getting. So console.log filters. Let's go ahead and save that and then go back to our console. And sure enough, here's our filters list. All, NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, N64, and so on. So I'm going to take that console.log out now. And let me actually take that other console.log out as well. I'll just comment that out. We don't need that in our logs anymore. Okay, so now that we've got that filters set up, what we need to do is actually filter our posts. So I could say const filtered posts is going to be equal to, if my current filter is equal to all, which it's set to by default, then this is going to be equal to posts. Else, it's going to be equal to these posts filtered on that filter. So I could say posts dot filter, and then in here we could say post arrow function post dot system is equal to current filter. And that should give me a full list of everything I need there. So this is going to give me a filtered list, and that way I can click on NES and I get only 2 of them, and 3DS and I get 2 of them, and then all, and then I get all of them again. So that's how we're doing that filter. And then once we have that filter set up, we need to come down in here and actually set up what we're doing in here. So instead of just that blog text anymore, we want to actually build something here. So my class name, I'm going to call this blog posts outer box. And then inside of that, I'm going to have another div. And this one, I'm going to give it a class name and say blog posts container. And now inside of here, I can say div class name filter box. So this filter box is going to be essentially on our screen over here, everything above this white line, this is our filter box that we want to display. So inside the filter box, what we basically want to do, and let me maybe expand this just a little bit more so that you could see a little better. Inside the filter box, we need to map over our filters and just make this little tag for each one of them. So to do that, we can do some JSX code in here with the curly brackets, or JavaScript code rather. I can say filters.map, and then in here we say filter, and then we send that down in our arrow function, and we can say return. Inside of here, this is just simply going to be a span. Yeah, this is just simply going to be a span element here. And in our span element, we are basically going to put the filter text down in here. And then let me put this on different lines just so this will be a little bit easier to read here. So inside here, we're going to give it a key, which is just going to be filter. And then I'll give it a class name, which is going to be a string template. Whoops. It's going to be a string template in here. So we need the curly braces. And inside here, I could say system filter space $, filter equals current filter. So if our filter is set to the current filter, then basically we want to add a class name in here called selected filter, just so we can color it yellow, just like that all is yellow right now. If I click on that, now the NES is yellow. And if it's not selected, I'm simply going to add an empty string. Okay, so that is our class name. And then after that, to give it a animation on entrance, we can say data-AOS is going to be equal to fade down. And then finally, for an on click, inside here, we actually want to call our set current filter function, and we want to apply the filter that we're in to that function. So to do that, we use an arrow function, and we can say set current filter filter. So now, if I were to go ahead and save this and go back to my page, you could see we get all the filters printed there in text, but we haven't applied any styles at all to them yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I come into my blog.css, we need to go ahead and populate this with styles. And the first thing I'm going to need is that import up top. So at import ... /variables.css. And then after that, I can say blog posts container. And then inside here, let's give it a little bit of padding. So padding 24 pixels. Margin top is going to be equal to var -- header height, because we want this to start below the header. And then after that, I can say display is going to be flex, and my flex direction is going to be a row, which I guess is the default, so we don't technically need that one, but I like to put it anyway just so I can see visually what I'm looking at. And then flex wrap, I'm going to set this to wrap for when it gets smaller, that way it doesn't all get squished onto one row. And we'll do align items. I can say center and then justify content. We can say space evenly. Okay, now if I save that and come back to my site, it's still nothing because we obviously haven't changed all of these yet. So we have some more that we need to do before we get to that. So we did the blog post container, then we say dot filter box. Here, we could say width is going to be equal to 100%. We're going to stretch that all the way out across the screen. Display, flex, and this is going to be a let's see, flex direction row. We want to do flex wrap, and then align items, center, justify content, space evenly. And after this, I can say padding bottom 24 pixels, and then border bottom. We are going to say 2 pixels solid white. Save that. And you see now we get this white border box showing up down there. And then after that, let's see. After our filter box, we need to actually set our, right here, our system filter class name for each individual span. So let's go ahead and do that now. We can say dot system filter is going to be equal to padding. We're going to give it 8 pixels on top and 18 pixels on the sides. And then I'll say margin is going to be 12 pixels just to space them out a little bit. And now you can already see they're starting to space out a little bit more, and it's starting to look like what we want them to look like. So let's keep going with that. We can say background color is going to be var -- secondary color alpha. And then border radius, I'm going to say 50 pixels, color white, and font weight 600. Border, each of these is going to have a 2 pixel solid white border. And then for our transition, we're actually going to have to do something a little bit different here. So because we're using the AOS library and we set that AOS default transition to 1 second, that's going to override any CSS transition that we use in here. So what we need to do is we need to say all 1 second ease out, and we'll use that for our AOS transition. But now we need to actually set the other transitions that we want to change. So if I hover over any of those, right, they change from white to yellow and yellow to white, and we want that to last 1/3 of a second. So to do that, I can say color 0.3 seconds, and we're going to ease in, ease out. And then the other thing that we're changing for that is going to be our border color, and that's going to be 0.3 seconds. Also ease in, ease out. And after that, we have to mark this one important so that it overrides the AOS transition that we're going to get by using that library. And then finally, cursor pointer. Now we have to set that hover transition. So we can say dot system filter, and then this is going to be hover, and we want our color is going to be var tertiary color, and then our border color as well. This is going to be var tertiary color as well. Now, if I just copy that whole block, paste it down here, and then get rid of this class name and hover and change this to selected filter. So now if we save, you'll see if I refresh, I get the AOS transition from above coming in at 1 second, and then I get this smooth oh, something didn't work there. Okay, I spelled border color wrong. Let's try that again. So now I get a smooth 0.3 second change on that, and I also get the 1 second ease in from above. So everything's working there. Now I need to come back to my blog.jsx, and in this file, so we have all of this part, we have all of the filters set up and done, but now we need to actually load all of the articles down here, or all the games in this case. So to do that, I need to come back here, and under this div, our filter box, let's go ahead and go under the filter box. And basically down here, we need to have another map function. So filtered posts dot map, and then post, send it with an arrow function into here, and I can say return, and inside of here we can say game, where is it? Game card from components. And into this game card, we basically need to pass our post, and then we need to pass set selected post. And we also, well, that should be it actually, just two of them. We need post and then set selected post, because the post is going to be for the information to display, and the set selected post is going to tell you which article to open up when I click on it. So with that being said, our post is going to be equal to the post that we're passing in here, and then set selected post is going to be equal to the set selected post that we're passing in from here as well. So now we just, if I save that, you'll see they all show up down here, and it's just a bunch of game cards. So we have to go give that game card JSX now some definition as well. So here we can start by accepting our parameters that were our props rather that we're passing in. So if I say post and then set selected post, so those are the two props that we passed into this function. Next, we're gonna change this div to a link. So this one here from React router DOM. Let us space this out just a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. And then inside of this link, let's go ahead and add, let's add a few different properties here. So, or attributes rather. We can say key, and our key is going to be equal to our post dot underscore ID. And then our class name is going to be blog postcard. Our on click is going to be equal to set selected post, and then this is going to be basically our post that we have up here, because we want to set the selected post for our application to whichever one we just clicked on. And then after that, actually, we want to put this in an arrow function so that we can call more than one. So in here, we're going to set the selected post to post, and then I'm going to say scroll to the top. That's a function from our util.js. And then after that, we need to set our data AOS, but actually I haven't imported that yet. So let me copy AOS dist aos.css, and we'll go ahead and paste that up there. And now our data AOS is going to be equal to fade up. And then after that, finally, we need a 2. So here, basically, I'm going to do a string template in here, and this is going to be to blog slash, and then I pretty much need my post title. So I could just come in here and say post.title, and if I save that, whoops, no assignment, a function called saw, gamecard.jsx. What did I do? Scroll to top, I need parentheses after that. Okay, so now if I save that and click on one of these, I get slash blog slash the %20 legend %20 of %20 Zelda. And that is not what I want, because that makes it very difficult to read. So what I'm going to do, instead of passing the title in directly like that, we need to modify the title. So I'm going to make another function in my util.java, so where I can essentially take a title and make it lowercase and put dashes instead of spaces. And then with that, we'll be able to set the URL to something that's much more human readable. So to do that, I could say export const string to URL is going to be equal to, and I'll call this input string. It's an arrow function, and inside of here, return input string dot to lowercase dot, and then we want to replace, and in here we want to replace all of our spaces with a dash. And that should be everything we need for this function. So if I save that now and come back to my game card, now instead of doing post.title, if I cut that out and if I say string to URL post.title, and then make sure that string to URL gets imported from util, save that. And now if I come to my blog, what? Two lowercase replacey. Let's spell things right. Okay, now if I come back to my blog and if I were to click on one of these, I get blog the-legend-of-Zelda. And those dashes are much easier to read than the %20. So that is exactly what we want. Now let's go ahead and finish setting up our game card, because right now we have this link and the link just goes to this game card text, but obviously all of these are going to be different. We want them each to be their own card. So in here, let's go ahead and add an image, and the source for this image is going to be in brackets. We can say it's going to be our post dot image path, but actually this isn't going to work either. I need another function, because if you'll remember in our MongoDB, the image path is simply the image path is simply going to be the path to our image on our server. So if we access the URL that's serving up static images on our backend server using this, we should be able to get it. But we can't do it directly like that. We need to actually make another function inside of our util.js for getting an image URL. And that's going to be an API function down here. So export const get image URL is going to be equal to image path, another arrow function, and down here we can say return. And in here, this will be a string template, base URL, and then image path, and then after that, we just need to pass our URL postfix. Okay, so that should be exactly what we need. Make sure we spell that all the same so that we're not messing anything up. Okay, get image URL, save that file, come back to game card. Let's go ahead and import that as well. And now down here, if I say get image URL post image path, now that is going to give us what we actually need for this post here. And then after that, let's go ahead and give that an alt and a class name as well. So alt is going to be equal to game start screens, which is what all of those pictures are. And then my class name is going to be equal to blog card cover image. Okay, with that image tag in there now, we need to basically add pretty much our title and then a few more things beneath that. And let's just look here. We've got our title and then the year and the system and this little blinking white and yellow ball in the middle. So let's go ahead and add all of those. So for that title, we're just going to put that in a p tag. And that's simply just going to be post.title. And while we do that, let's add a class name so that we can apply some custom styles to that as well. So I'm going to say blog post card title. And then after that, after the title, we need to have, we're going to basically have that div or that section down here with all three of these. So I'm going to have a div for that. So div class name, and this is going to be our blog post card details. And then inside of this div, we need to have all three of those things. So the first one is going to be a span with a class name equal to blog post card year. And then inside of that, we're just going to have, in curly brackets, we're going to have post dot release year. And then after that, we are going to have a div that we're just going to have a class name ball. And that could technically be self-closing, but it doesn't matter. And in here, we can say span class name equals blog post card system. And then this is going to be inside curly brackets post.system. So now if I save that, you can see we actually have quite a bit showing up here, but it's not very useful. It's way too big. We can't see any of that. We need to style this. So let's come into our let's see, we have gamecard.jsx. Let's come into gamecard.jss, or CSS rather. And in here, I'm going to copy this top import line because we'll be using those variables again. So inside the gamecard.css, now in here, let's start with that top one, which we called blog post card. So inside of here, I can say background color, and this is going to be var secondary color alpha. Okay. And then after that, we are going to say our border radius, I'm going to do 24 pixels, and our padding is going to be 12 pixels, and our display is going to be flex. Our flex direction is going to be a column. Our flex shrink, we're going to set that to 1 so that these shrink if they need to. Our margin, going to be 12 pixels, and my width is going to be 300 pixels with text decoration set to none. And the reason we're doing that is, of course, because I put these within a link. So anything within a link is going to have that blue or purple, depending on if you've clicked on it, text with the underline, and I don't like that look. And then inside of here, I'm going to say any span in here, I want it to have a font weight of 600 and a font size of normal, a color white, and then for these we're going to say transition all 0.3 seconds, ease in and ease out. And then finally down here we can say media screen and max width is or if our max width is, or if our width is up to 450 pixels rather, then inside here I'm going to say padding, we're going to say 12 pixels on the top and the bottom and 0 pixels on the side. And that should clean that up a little bit. Now let's style that image. So we've got blog card cover image, I believe is what we named that. And then inside of here, we want to say border. It's going to be border dash top right radius, and this is going to be 24 pixels. And then the same thing for this one, border top left radius, 24 pixels. And then down here, I'm going to say my height is going to be 160 pixels, and my width is going to be 100%, and then object fit cover. So now if I save that, this is starting to look a little bit more like what we want to see in here. But we still do have a few things that we need to clean up. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got the image. Down here, I can say .blog post cover. And inside the cover, I can say my width is going to be 300 pixels and my height is going to be set to auto. because again, if on this you set only the width, the height is going to determine how much it needs to be to keep the aspect ratio. And then after that, we can say blog post card title. And this one, we can say font weight 700. We want that to be a little bit bolder than the rest of the text. So font weight 700, font size, let's say larger, and then margin bottom. This is going to be, let's see, 12 pixels might look good. And then we'll say color, white, and then again, transition, whoops, not transform, transition. We're going to do that transition that I like, which is all at 0.3 seconds, ease in and out. And then after that, we can say our height is going to be 3.6 pixels. Or sorry, not pixels. That would be way too small. 3.6 rem. And actually, let's do the rem maybe instead of the margin. That way, we'll have this just be a constant height, so all these cards are the same size. So with that being done, if I go ahead and save that now, there we go. You could see this is starting to look much more like what we have here, but there's still a few things, obviously, that we need to fix. So let's get on and do that. The next one, we can say dot blog post card details. Obviously, these are on top of each other right now. We don't want that. We want them in a row. So the first thing I can do is display flex, and then flex direction row is going to be that by default, but I like to put it anyway. Align items, center, and then justify content. We want space between. Now, if I save that, you could see this looks a lot better, but we're missing that little ball on the inside. So let's go ahead and add that. We can say dot ball, and this is going to have a background color of white. And we're just going to say width, 10 pixels, height, 10 pixels, and then border radius, 50%. That should make that a circle. And then this one as well, we're going to say transition all 0.3 seconds, ease in and out. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. And now you see that ball has arrived, but we need to work on this hover. So to do that, we can say blog post card hover, and whenever we hover over this, we want to change all of this text. So I can say, let's see, first of all, I can say span and p. For all span and p tags, we want to change the color to var, and this is going to be our tertiary color, and that's a fun word, tertiary color. There we go, and you can see that's working for all of the text in the ball. And we could, obviously, we could just also put this ball class in here and say change our background color, but we don't actually want to do that. If you look at the site I had before, the text changes, but the ball flashes back and forth. So actually, what we're going to want to do here is we want to define a animation. So I could say at keyframes white to yellow, and then inside of here, I'm going to say 0%, 0%, 50%, and finally 100%. And in here, basically, I'm just going to say background color white, background color, this is going to be var tertiary color, and then this will be again background color white, which means we're going to start at white, go to yellow, go back to white. And basically, I want this animation to play whenever I hover over one of these boxes. So to do that, I can come into here and I can simply say dot ball and animation let's see, animation, white to yellow, 0.5 seconds, infinite, ease in and out. So this is going to make it flash back and forth every half a second. So now if I save that and hover over, well, there you go. We've got our animation working. So here's our site. Let's just click on one of these and make sure that the link works. So there we go. The link links to this blog page here, which we're not going to do in this video. We'll push the blog page and then the about page to the next video. And then after that, we'll do a video on the content management system and how we can build that in our admin page so that we can actually use our web page as well to do post and then delete requests to our backend server. So definitely you're going to want to stick around for that. Here's what we have on our website right now. We've got this where we can filter on our system. We can also set the filter back to all of them. And we've got all of these articles that are coming in, and this is starting to actually look pretty good. So hopefully you guys are having fun and learning something while you're doing it, building this project. I think it's an interesting project with a fun, maybe nostalgic for a lot of us, a nostalgic theme. So hopefully you're learning something, and make sure to subscribe and also leave a comment down below letting me know if you actually made it to the end of this video. And we'll see you in the next video that we'll be putting out here soon.